I'm Vid, and this is a structural analysis of the Victorinox Swisstool Spirit multi-tool, as well as a demonstration of the various tools on it. Now, I believe that the weakest point in this tool is a spring that's part of the locking mechanism. And the spring is right there. And this locking mechanism is operated by a lever on the side, and I'll explain it in more detail. Here I have created a diagram of the end of one of the tools in this multi-tool. This point represents the pivot point on the tool, and this is the end. And by tool I mean one of these things that opens and closes. One of these things. Inside of the tool there is this spring that holds this piece of metal here, and this piece of metal here locks in place all the tools. And this piece of metal is the same piece of metal as these side knobs. It's very hard to do this video because of the glare. Okay, so in my diagram I have this spring represented as this brown portion. And by the way, when you open and close the locking mechanism, this side of the spring actually doesn't touch the edge of the case. Looks like it does though. It's very precise how they did that. This part, the metal part that goes into the locking mechanism, let me pull it back so you can see that more closely. Alright, that metal part is represented by this blue part here. This part of metal is actually part of the same piece of sheet metal that makes up the case. It's represented by this green part, and then on the outside there's this piece of metal, and it's represented by this orange part on the diagram. This is a diagram of an erect tool. When you pull out a tool, the blue piece goes up and locks in, that holds it. And then you pull the lever and the blue piece goes down, and then you can close your tool. I believe that this spring is the thinnest, smallest piece of metal on the whole tool, so I think that's the weak point. The other weak point is part of the pliers. Right here where this part of metal meets this piece of metal, if one of these portions wears down, then the pliers won't function well. But I believe that these pliers are fairly well built. It's just when they do break, that's where they'll probably break. And this part that holds the pliers in place, this part is very thick. And I'll go over the features of this tool. On the outside you have all the tools that open. You have a saw with an interesting grind. It's actually a bunch of pyramidal teeth. Then there's an awl with a hook. Large flathead bottle opener wire stripper. A chisel with whatever this is. Serrated knife. A coarse and fine file. A can opener. Phillips flathead, and a pair of scissors with a heavy duty spring in them. Some people complain that these scissors don't open wide enough. I think if you're cutting something that's really wide, you probably wouldn't use scissors in the first place. And I normally wouldn't use these scissors much. Okay, and here are the pliers, and they have wire cutters with little indentations, so you can use them as wire strippers. Every tool that opens on the outside opens with its own little slot. They're these very fine slots that are cut in this metal, probably cut by a laser, and these slots make it so that when you open a single tool, one tool comes out and the rest of them don't. It's put together by rivets, and there's also this corkscrew with a small screwdriver attached to it, and the corkscrew slides in to this groove here. Now, I got this tool to use as a fiddle toy, the comparable level of what I consider to be fiddleability to a large Rubik's Cube. And I figured I could just fiddle with this and to entertain me, and it wouldn't wear down that easily like the Rubik's Cube. But I think it's not as durable as I want it to be, so I think I'll sell it. I got a very good deal for $60. It was very cheap. And so I could sell it for about the same price, maybe even more. I don't like to collect things and I prefer not to have more than 3 knives, but I do like to have very durable things, and I just didn't think the locking mechanism met my durability standards. Also, another thing is the steel that makes this case is a reasonable quality steel for a case. It's comparable to a Leatherman case, and the steel that the tools are made of is all a slightly more durable steel than the case, and they're hardened. But there's some tools, like some Leathermans, where they'll have 1 or 2 tools, like a knife, that are made of a high-end steel. At the low end of the spectrum could be, I think it's 420 or 440 HC, and then at the very high end of the spectrum is the S30V steel. It's in a high-end Leatherman knife, and that's going to be much harder and much more rugged, but it's very difficult for a manufacturer to make that steel because it involves spraying the various metals into tiny droplets and infusing nitrogen into it. And it's very complex and requires lots of machinery, and I don't fully understand it. So thank you for watching my video. I encourage you to thumbs up the video, comment, subscribe, maybe check out my website and check out the stoves that I make and sell. Bye.